generate. Oh, that's fucking cool. Hey everybody, welcome back to the NerdNest. On today's episode, we've got some news, a new feature that's coming to SteamOS that people have been looking for a really long time. People have been requesting it. Not only have people been requesting it, but third-party devs have even implemented it through plugins, which is awesome. But Valve has recently developed a tendency to do what's called Sherlocking third-party plugins. If you've never heard of this term before, it is centered around Apple, where Apple will see an app that does something cool, and they will integrate that kind of functionality right into the operating system, effectively making that third-party app not really needed anymore. And that process is called Sherlocking because one of the first programs that Apple ever did that to was called Sherlock. So recently Valve has started to develop this tendency to Sherlock plugins that have been on the Steam Deck. The first one that jumps to mind is there was a plugin a while ago that allowed you to change the color temperature of your change the color temperature of your screen to make your screen look a little bit different. It would also allow you to change the saturation level of your screen. The LCD Steam Deck was a very washed out screen. It didn't have a lot of colors that popped, and because of that, third-party plugin makers, they made a plugin that allowed you to increase the saturation of the screen, change the color temperature of your screen in order to make your screen look better. Well, Valve looked at that and they said, well, we can do that. And so they released a version of SteamOS that had that stuff built in, essentially making that plugin no longer necessary. It's obsolete at this point. Well, they just did it again. There's been a plugin that has been developed for the Steam Deck that allows you to record your gameplay, which is awesome. I love that that is something that a third-party dev took upon themselves because there were a lot of people that were requesting that feature. I mean, think about it. You look at your Xbox, there's a share button. You can record what happened when you're playing on your Xbox. PlayStation has the same thing. Even the Nintendo Switch, which is a very underpowered device compared to everything else, even the Nintendo Switch allowed you to record the last 30 seconds of gameplay and share it. Now, you probably noticed I've got my phone in my hand, so let's bring it up on screen so that we can look at it together. It says here, Steam Game Recording Beta, a new built-in system for creating and sharing your gameplay footage. You can record, you can replay, you can clip, and you can share using this. And they say clips are didn't happen. From capturing highlights to documenting entire campaigns, there are many ways to use this all-new set of features. With background recording mode, your gameplay is continuously saved to your preferred drive, never exceeding your specified duration and storage limits. And on-demand recording mode with a manual start and stop is also available. Use the stream timelines and event markers to find your key moments. All right, we'll talk about those key markers and timelines in just a second. So first off, this is already way more powerful than what we have on... I'm going to stick to the Nintendo Switch because that's the one that I probably use the most. What that did is it always recorded in the background, which was great. But you had the ability to press and hold the screenshot button, and that would basically save the last 30 seconds of footage. You didn't really have any control over how much was recorded, but in this case, on the Steam Deck, you do have control over that. And so you are able to say, I want you to keep this much footage. I know how much storage I have. I know how much storage I can dedicate to this. So let's make sure that we keep that recording so that we can use it more often. I think that this is fantastic. And by the way, as a content creator, I'm really excited for this because if the recording quality is good enough, it'll make it really easy for people like me who make videos about the Steam Deck to be able to capture footage that looks exactly like what we see when we're playing a game on the Steam Deck without having to, hook it up via HDMI and do any of that stuff. So I think that is awesome. Okay, so first off, the replay feature. They say useful for things like seeing what went wrong when your hero died or recalling something mentioned by an NPC earlier. When I think about replay, it's usually because something cool happened in my game and I want to share that something cool that happened in my game with my friends or, with the people who follow me on social media, that kind of thing. That is what I usually think of when I think of replay. However, it says here you want to see what is it that killed me when I'm playing. So this almost feels like you're playing a game and something happened, and then you can quickly hit a button and have it come up and play the last, we'll say 30 seconds right then, so you can say, oh, okay, I stepped on this grenade which went off at the same time that somebody was swinging a battle axe at me. That's why I died. So that makes sense, but it's not really a use case that I ever really thought of. Next up, they say clip. Find and keep the good stuff. Keep only the video that matters to you. Steam offers lightweight tools to make it easy to find a clip in your gameplay footage. Share and edit local footage in the redesigned recordings and screenshots interface. Okay, so that seems like the kind of thing where we usually think about when we think about the share buttons on our console. So that's pretty cool. They also say the share conveniently send clips. You can get your videos where you want them. One click to share to a friend in chat or to post your finest moments for the world to see. Plus, easily send footage from your Steam Deck to your PC or mobile device. Use that new save/share menu during or after play. So you're playing, you capture something. When you're all done, you load it back up. You clip out the exact moment that you actually want to share, and then you can share it out. And stick around until the end. I'm going to show you something that's very, very cool that you can do pretty much only on Steam Deck, as far as I know. All right, moving on. It says, now it's easy to find, keep, and share moments. Introducing an array of lightweight yet powerful tools. Timeline and event markers. So there's a lot of people out there that have never edited video. And video is all about finding those moments and clipping out the stuff that you don't need. And a lot of times it is really, really cumbersome to do any of that stuff. Editing video is very time consuming, but the tools that Valve is going to try and give us here are all about making that process simple and easy. And in recent years, editing video has gotten easier and easier and easier. The tools, they just keep getting better. So let's take a look at the tools that Valve is going to give us. The Steam timeline appears when you're actively recording. Timeline enhanced games generate. Oh, that's fucking cool. Okay, this is cooler than I thought. The Steam timeline appears when you're actively recording. So I hit the button, it starts recording, and a timeline shows up on my screen. Timeline enhanced games generate event markers as relevant game events happen. So you're playing a game, you get a headshot, it's automatically going to put a marker on the timeline so you can find it later, so you don't have to scrub through a bunch of footage to find that specific moment. Now, it's important to note that they said specifically timeline enhanced games. So these are games that have to be designed with this in mind. Not every game is going to support these features, but that's okay. As we move forward, I think that this kind of thing is going to be relatively trivial. The game knows when you got a headshot. All it has to do is also pass that information out of the game to Steam in some way so that Steam can say, oh, let's throw that on the timeline. There's already some tools out there that do this without having the game know what's happening. I can't remember them off the top of my head, but I believe I saw Harris Heller talking about them on one of his videos about, live streaming and stuff like that. So this one requires that the game makers build with this in mind, but I bet you it's an easy process to go back and patch, or maybe not necessarily an easy process, but it isn't an overly cumbersome process. At least I wouldn't anticipate that it would be. But even if you're playing a game that doesn't support timeline enhanced stuff, the player, you have the ability to go ahead and add a marker whenever you want. Here's what Valve said about that. Drop markers as a reference point at moments you may want to watch later. Event markers allow you to quickly grab a clip or add notes to background recordings. All right, you've been playing a game, you've got a bunch of captures, you've added a bunch of markers, or the game added a bunch of markers. Now, what do you got to do? Well, the timeline is automatically going to have those marks on it. So you scrub through your timeline, find the stuff that you think is relevant that you want to share, clip that stuff out, and then it's time to go to the share sheet. The share sheet has a really cool feature that I actually talked about in a previous video. I will leave a link down below. It's a bunch of tips and tricks dealing with SteamOS, and it's this new way of sharing your clips and screenshots with other people using a QR code. So basically, when you open up this new interface, it's going to give you the ability to bring up a little QR code, and then you can grab your phone and you can scan that QR code, and it's going to send that information to your phone. So that's an easy way to get it off of your Steam Deck. On the Nintendo Switch, on the Xbox, on the PlayStation, there's really, especially now that Twitter integration is gone from all of those, there's really no good way for you to share that moment that you clipped, making those buttons almost, I'm not even going to say almost, I'm going to say effectively useless. Yes, you can share with your friends on Xbox or your friends on PlayStation, but how many of us actually do that? But in addition to that, Steam also stores all clips in an optimized Steam timeline format for snappier, smoother replays, but at any time you can export to an MP4 for easy sharing or editing outside of Steam. So if I'm playing a game and I want to capture a bunch of moments as I'm playing it and have it look like it does on the Steam Deck, I can use the recording feature for Steam, and then I can export as an MP4, and I can then import it into my video editor that I usually use, which is Final Cut Pro. But because it's an MP4, you can put it into pretty much any video editor. Maybe it's Filmora or it's DaVinci Resolve, which is free, or, you know, Premiere Pro if you subscribe to Adobe. You know, you have the option to put it into whatever program you want. One thing that I think a lot of people would worry about when you're doing this is how much of an impact is it going to have on actual gameplay. So for example, if you're playing a game and you are recording that gameplay on the same device, you will usually see a hit to performance on the game that you're playing. So for example, let's say that I'm playing, World of Warcraft, and I'm playing through World of Warcraft and I'm recording my gameplay at the same time. I could see some frame rate hitches in World of Warcraft because my computer is doing two pretty intense things at the same time. Recording things is a pretty intense process for a computer. So much so that when I used to do live streams all the time, I went out and bought a graphics card that had a special chip on it. I can't remember which one it was, but there was a special chip on the graphics card that did all of the video encoding for it so that it didn't take away from my gameplay. So that's one thing that I think a lot of people would be worried about, is how is this recording process going to impact the performance of playing games on a low power device like the Steam Deck? Well, Valve says here that it is engineered for performance. It minimizes CPU usage of video encoding by using dedicated video encoding hardware of your AMD or NVIDIA GPUs. So that seems like they're saying it's kind of like that chip that I was mentioning before. Whether or not that is going to work as well on the Steam Deck remains to be seen. It is in beta, so keep that in mind. But what do you guys think of this? Is this something that you're going to use often, or is it something that you feel like, nah, it's not something for me? Let me know in the comments down below that like button. And the last thing that I'll say is I'm going to be at Too Many Games this weekend. It's going to be me, Russ from Retro Game Core, Rich from Fan the Deck, Carrie from The Fox, Bob Wolf from The Wolf Den, and we're all going to be on a panel talking about the golden age of handheld gaming. If you are in the Philadelphia area and you want to come by and say hi, please do. I would love to see you there. And from the Nerd Nest, I'm Bill. I hope you stay rad.